Let's be real fast. I actually want to hear what these guys have to say. It's real interesting. From working in schools the last couple of years, I worked in Danforth, I worked in Follower. We do different programs there, me and Ty. I've noticed, as he says all the time, is many of the youth that we talk to are just living to die when we ask them what they're doing, when they ask them what their goals are. And they really don't have it, they don't plan on living past a certain age. And the majority of the youth that I've dealt with, it's sad, especially at the Danforth school I was at last year. I ran a program there. Many of them just don't even have the family to fall back on. A lot of them are being raised by their grandmas and grandpas or aunts, their sisters, and their aunts might be strung out on drugs. I'm a huge firm believer just from seeing it, experiencing it in love and that family structure. That family structure has to be there, even if it's not the mom and dad. It's someone, a male and a female, or just a family that can love on them and support the kids.
To speak from personal experience, and I'll just be transparent briefly. My father was killed when I was 8 in Houston, Texas. That resulted to me being in the Texas State foster care system, which is how I ended up here from my grandmother. And about 3 years after that, my mother was killed in a fire. Found out that later someone set the fire because her husband, she married, owed people some money for heroin. A couple years after that, I lost a couple aunts and my grandmother, who I was living with after watching her battle cancer. And the way that hurt me is that I felt like I had nobody. You know what I'm saying? And what we talked about earlier, as far as, you know, you being accepted no matter what, that means a lot. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, and when you got people willing to go to bat for you and that's going to step up and be there for you, again, that means a lot. And so at that point, you kind of got tunnel vision. And, you know, it's like, you know, you got a good hand in poker or something, so you're all in with it. And no matter what the consequences are, despite you seeing your comrades next to you fall, it's just like a casualty of war. It's almost like you got like the same syndrome as a soldier on a battlefield, which, thanks to Noble and the light he sheds on trauma in the urban communities, I'm a researcher by nature. I got a master's in community economic development, so I love to research. And one of the things that they find is in war-torn countries and in conflict zones, the children there have the same traumatic syndromes as soldiers that go to war themselves. And the only missing link in the gap that we have here in understanding that in America is that the urban gang population has that same syndrome. But it's just, well, it's diagnosed now, but it went undiagnosed for years. When you get a chance, Noble has published the article, Street Addictions Theory Model, which is now diagnosed and labeled this syndrome and addiction to street life and street culture. And I'll just stop at there and let him take it over from here.
Thanks for the promotional plug. But I don't want people to get the wrong impression about our families, so to speak, because a lot of these young people come from households that do have two parents, that parents are working hard, providing the young people with the things that they do need, but you have to understand there's a large communication gap between some of the parents and the children. I don't care what age you are, what ethnicity, you gotta come outside. You gotta come outside and face up to the world. And when communication is cut short in a household, things could spiral out of control, so to speak, especially when the environment is out of control. Because I say this and I say this time and time again, we use the term community loosely. We don't live in a community. When people can shoot from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m., that's not a community. That's a war zone. So you have families who are trying to raise children in this war zone. The level of anxiety is out of the roof. The level of paranoia is out of the roof. This is why you will see parents get involved and want to fight with their children. It's not because they're ignorant. It's fear of loss. Because that loss is not being addressed in our community. You have over 300 people murdered in the city of Syracuse per statistics of Mothers Against Gun Violence with no grief counseling services available. Right? And these young people are going to gravitate to whoever listens to them. And one thing, we have to meet the young people where they're at, but they can't lead this. Right? They can't lead this. It's up to the adults in the community. We don't act like we family.
That's right.
So how you going to go to young people on the corner and say, yo, you should, learn to listen, so on and so forth. Some of the institutions in our community got a gang mentality. Right? So you can't necessarily ask young people to do something that we not willing to do. But you know what? They got more heart than we do. You know why? Because they willing to die for what they believe in. We'll send you an email. Of facts. Which is kind of funny. But this is how serious they are. Right? You look at it on the outside as an illusion. But to them it's real life. They lose people so fast they don't even have time to process. Right? And then the family structure, if it's already tweaked, you can have two parents in the household. It could be one parent, it could be grandmother, so on and so forth. You cannot pick your children's friends. They're going to like who they're going to like, just like you. Right? And who they don't get along with, they're not going to get along with. What we have to do is to start the process of rebuilding community, so when they come out of the household, the language that's being spoken in the household is the same language being spoken in the community. There's no thread between the language. I got to act one way at school. I got to act one way at the community center. I got to act one way on the block. That's schizophrenic nature. No wonder they got identity crisis.
Good. I was stuck in thought, sorry. It's deep.
Noble really struck a chord with me with that. I mean, in my religious organization, we say man's not the body and the soul, right? When he said how we treat each other, those of us right here in the room, those of us in the professional world, those of us that claim to be a better example for those youth in the street, we're 3 times worse than they are. Because we're dealing with the same, let's just be real. If we all had the answers to the situation, we wouldn't be here today. And we know, like the first question, one of the major issues here is self-identity. Identity, as 4th District Council often says, identity is intimately related with purpose. If you have question marks over your head about identity, whether it's as an individual or as a community, then you have the same question marks with regards to purpose, with regards to life goals, self-esteem, motivation, worldview, you name it. The difference between us and them is that they have enough courage to pull the pistol out and kill you, but they can only kill the body once. How many times do we kill each other with memos, emails, funny looks? You think the youth don't see it? Know what they do? Everybody, those of you that are service providers here know exactly what I'm talking about. When they look at you and they smile and they tell you exactly what you want to hear, and they sign their name on the sheet, and then they go home, and then you read about them in the news the next day. Why? Because in their head you sound like Charlie Brown's school teacher. That's what you sound like. Because after they've determined, they're playing by gang rules. They're gangsters. I know that game. They shut you out. You are no longer effective. That's the truth. So even the whole issue, I said that to say this, the issue with family structure, or the issue with family and gang life, or family and gang activity, is directly related to identity. We have some of the same problems. We've just learned to be a little more social, more socially adept in dealing with them, so we think.
On the next topic of violence, I'm going to kind of go back and then go back to this, go back and touch on violence again. The question is what is the underlying connection between gangs and violence? What does violence or the threat of violence represent to gangs? So I want to kind of go back to the RICO and a conversation we've had about when the RICO wiped out a lot of the upper echelon of social leaders in the gang communities where the young ones grew up with no social structure in that lifestyle, which is what we're dealing with today with young ones who are desensitized and can pull the trigger so quickly. Speak on that, please.
Well, we know anytime you take something out of nature.
Sorry, can you recap though what I was referring to about when that whole?
Okay. Well, when the RICO laws hit and they started removing young men from the community in large volumes, 24 here, 12 there, 17 here, it created a vacuum in the streets. Everybody is just one step away from stepping up. So when that vacuum was created, nature's going to fill that void. But what you have now is young people who don't have the ability to think in a constructive manner. Their energy is different, right? People trying to understand or get a grasp on the way they're thinking. They're thinking at the speed of light. This is why things change so fast in the street culture, even the terminology. So trying to harness that energy is a job in itself. So they don't have the line of logic that go A, B, C, D. They don't. It's not linear. It's A, Z. It's all over the place. So even trying to talk to them, and what was the funny thing, once some of these young people start coming home from prison, they say we can't even talk to the young people. They don't listen to us. They'll shoot one of us, right? And that's a reality. So their thing is, they come to the conclusion, everybody's abandoning us, we're out here on our own, so it's either all or nothing. And even, because what you see in Syracuse too, is a lot of them participate and celebrate a death culture, right? This is not a life culture. When the last time you seen 5 graduation parties in one weekend? Or a report card day where it's on the news, because we're highlighting young people in the community that's getting A's and B's. They're out there. We have some young people that have a level of genius attached to them, but the attention is given the opposite way. So now it's almost like, okay, if I get A's and B's, I might as well pop somebody upside the head to get some attention, right? Because the culture, the life culture on that side of life is not celebrated. We've done a horrible job at setting up these containers and institutions for these young people to get the praise that they so deserve, right? So, and this is what the young people see, what he's talking about. Somebody go to jail, they're throwing a party, a going away party. Gone 5 or 6 years, they come back and get a party. Get Timberlands, jackets, the hood, show them love. You go on the block and talk about, yo, I got an A in chemistry. And, right? There's no celebration for that. So you have these young people that start to internalize this from their environment, and then you got geniuses on the corner smoking sticks, smoking formaldehyde. Now, you can't tell me that they're not geniuses, because anytime you can take a kilo of cocaine with 36 ounces, break it down, distribute money to 50 different people and know who owe you what, you got some genius there, right? So it's just the attention is diverted in another direction. So these young people that he talks